everybody, and welcome to WTF Hammer Underworlds. So in today's video, I actually wanted to overview all of the balancing recommendations that I made for Season 2, and I'm even going to bring in Season 1 into the conversation in this balancing summary. And I can summarize most of Season 2 just through this table that I prepared. And I made a similar table for Season 1, which I've actually tweaked since my last video where I was overviewing my Season 1 conclusions in terms of how I'd recommend Games Workshop make modifications in order to balance everything out. And in all cases, in every single one of my balancing videos, I've always tried to take sort of the path of least resistance and just sort of demonstrate an easy way that Games Workshop could return balance to the game just by doing two simple things, which is adding to their list of errated cards. So therefore modifying existing cards that particular factions have in order to make them stronger or weaker in some cases for the sake of balance. And the second thing was my recommendation that they include some new faction specific cards, always following the same pattern, which is to make old warbands from Season 1 and Season 2 be play out of the box, meaning that they have 12 objective cards and 20 or more power cards. And in all of my videos, it always came out to being 11 gambits, 11 upgrade cards, because some warbands already have 11 gambits and 11 upgrades. So I just made sure that all warbands finished with the same number of cards, being 12 objectives, 11 gambits, and 11 upgrades. And this table here basically summarizes my Season 2 conclusions. So you can see the little rankings that I gave all of these warbands from my review video. So you have Stormsire's Cursebreakers, which I ranked as an A, Thorns of the Briar Queen S, Zarbag's Gits A, etc. And if you want to see how I've justified those rankings, you can just search through my YouTube channel and find videos for any particular warband that you're curious about. But based on these rankings, I implemented my suggestions for errata and new faction specific cards. And as you can see by looking through Season 2, there really isn't a whole ton that needs to be changed in order to make Season 2 balanced. And when I say balanced, what I mean is that I just tried to tweak warbands in such a way that I could qualify all of them as being in Tier A in terms of their ranking, not Tier S, which is very overpowered, not lower than Tier A, which I find a little bit weak. But in terms of Season 2, all they would really need is 30 new reprints. So there'd be 30 cards from the whole Season 2 list of 8 warbands that I'd recommend be reworded in some way. And then these could be added to the 3 existing cards that are already in their errata list. Minus Varklav though, because I had made a tweak for him as well. That'll lead to a total of 33 cards in the errata list, which I'd recommend just get printed out so that there's not so much need to reference other documents when playing Warhammer Underworlds. And then these new printed out cards, which are really just reprints of old cards with tweaks, could be put together in a card pack with new faction specific cards, specifically 2 new objective cards for each warband so that they have that valid faction specific deck that all the new warbands since Season 3 began already have. So it would end up looking like this, with 49 cards and an updated far list, because I did recommend that 1 new card from Thorns of the Briar Queen be added to the restricted list. And obviously these 49 cards could be released in some kind of a card pack. And if Games Workshop even wanted to be particularly stingy about it, they could release it with 11 other cards to make a 60 card pack, because that's the typical number that exists in their released card packs when they release them with warbands, and just force everybody to buy the packs and get the new 11 universal cards, kind of like they do with the gift pack. But anyway, all to say that these 49 cards, as well as this updated far list, would balance Season 2. It would add numerous viable warbands back into the game. It would address overpowered warbands, and it would reduce the need to reference errata, just making this game much better. I'm going to be including a PDF file of my specific recommendations in the description below that you guys will be able to check out. And as I did in my previous balancing summary video, where I looked at Season 1, I just wanted to reintroduce you to the table that I presented there as well, although I have made modifications to my Season 1 recommendations, because lately I've been looking through the Season 3 warbands, preparing to review them by looking at all of their cards, and I realized that in some cases, particularly with Garrick Reavers, I didn't really give enough of a boost to these older warbands in order to make them competitive. So I have listened to the comment section and the thoughts and suggestions that people have mentioned to me, and I've incorporated those that I thought would actually help make the game more balanced and make the game more fun. You can see from Season 1 that I'd recommended that there be 34 reprints from errata, which could be added to the 3 cards that already exist on the errata list, and then that could be supplemented as well with 24 new faction specific cards, usually 2 objective cards and 1 power card, in order to make these warbands play out of the box as well, which would result in a total of 61 cards that would fix Season 1 and We can even remove one of the errata suggestions if they wanted a clean 60 cards. I'll say that a card pack of 61 cards would certainly fix Season 1, adding 8 viable warbands back into the game, reducing the need to reference errata. In fact, just by coincidence, considering that there are 61 cards that I recommend for Season 1 and 49 cards that I recommend for Season 2, if all of these suggestions were taken into account, it actually adds up just coincidentally to exactly 100 cards, which could be released as some kind of a mega pack, and would just be awesome and would just make this game a lot better, allowing this game to just increase hugely in terms of its variety. Because as I've mentioned before, the reason I started making balancing videos is because the main issue that Warhammer Underworlds has is an issue of balancing. There are only a few warbands that are really viable at any given time. Sometimes I like to go back and play some Season 1 or Season 2 warbands that aren't that strong, just because I like their play style, but it ends up not being so fun to play them when you get completely smashed by warbands that are objectively superior. And Games Workshop does tend to put efforts into balancing the game through their FAR list and through the small errata changes that they've made. But I mean, if they want to do anything really substantial, following something like the list that I've put together would make a lot of sense and would make the game much more enjoyable. Anyway, for your convenience, I'm just going to quickly show you the documents that I've put together. I'm not going to overview them completely. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be putting these PDF files in the description below so that you guys can access them and look at them and see if you agree with them, or send me feedback as to suggestions that you might have if you disagree with them. And this is the first file here. So as you can see, I've ranked the Season 1 and Season 2 warbands based on this tier list. And this list really reads from left to right. So for example, Thundrik's Profiteers, I rank as A, just as I ranked Molog's Mob as A, but I do believe that Thundrik's Profiteers are superior to Molog's Mob, even though I do put them both in the A tier. And since my videos, I've also moved Godsworn Hunt, which at first I had placed above Far Striders and Iron Skull's Boys. But after some reflection on it, I've actually lowered their tier because I believe they are weaker than them. And you can basically scroll through this document, as I'm about to do, and you can basically see all my suggestions in chronological order. So there's Shadespire, my Steelheart's Champion suggestions, Garruk's Reavers, Sepulchral Guard, Iron Skull's Boys, Chosen Axes, Spiteclaw's Swarm, Far Striders, Magor's Fiends. So that's all the Season 1 warbands. And I have really fine-tuned my suggestions since the last time I released a balancing summary video. So the information here is not necessarily going to be the same information I provided on their individual balancing videos. And if you continue, you can see the Season 2 recommendations. So Stormsires, Thorns of the Briar Queen, Zarbag's Gits, Eyes of the Nine, Molog's Mob, leading into Godsworn Hunt, Ilthari's Guardians, and finally Thundrik's Profiteers, and my suggestions, both errata and new faction-specific cards for all of these warbands. And I've even gone a step further, where I've reorganized this document in such a way that I've organized them based on the tiers. You can kind of compare within and between given tiers the kind of suggestions and buffs and nerfs and all that sort of stuff that I've given to any given warband. So for example, for S tier, the only warband that I had ranked as S in Season 1 and 2 was Thorns of the Briar Queen. And you can see that there is some nerfing happening in the errata mainly, and faction-specific cards are fairly neutral. And then if you scroll down to A tier, you see that Thundrik's, there's some modifications, but the benefits they gain are not as good as Molog's Mob because they are weaker in the A tier. And then B tier, I've organized them as well based on my tier system. And C tier, leading into D tier at the end. And then Steelheart's Champions being the weakest warband in my opinion. Obviously, I've been given many recommendations for improvement. So I encourage you guys to go check those things out. I did put a lot of thought into them. In fact, I've seen people make custom warbands and custom warband competitions where they seem to know how to put together cards through some kind of online tool or using some kind of software. So if anybody's interested in doing that for me, there's basically 100 cards that I'd like to remake. Most of them being errata, so those are just easy modifications, but some of the new faction-specific cards would have to be made from scratch, and I don't really know how to make nice digital versions of those cards. If anybody wants to reach out to me to make these cards with me so we can make these cards available in case anybody wants to use them for house rules or something like that, feel free to shout out. And of course, if anybody would like to share this information with Games Workshop, show them that there is an interest from a consumer end in purchasing a card pack like this, a 100 card pack that would balance Season 1 and 2, that they can make some profit by such an endeavor without spending too much effort, that would be appreciated as well. But mostly this is just a fun little side project of mine. I find it fun to look at these things and have discussions about how we could balance out this game. So I thank you all for watching. Of course, if you guys have any thoughts or suggestions, please comment below. Please like and subscribe if you want to support the channel, and I hope you all have a nice day.